Hi, this is James from Tabletop Gaming Guild, and today we're going to look over the game Compounded. It's a 2 to 5 player game published by Greater Than Games. In Compounded, you're going to be playing as a lab manager. You're going to race to try to finish as many compounds as possible, dealing with lab fires and chain reactions and other lab managers to try to be the most successful lab manager by the end of the game. Let's go ahead down to the table here. I'll give you a general overview of how to play the game, and then we'll come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Okay, so this is what a setup of Compounded might look like. So we are going to go over a couple different things. Now I will say, if you want comprehensive rules, you would want to check out Greater Than Games. They came out with an amazing comprehensive rules video for this game. I'm just going to give you a brief overview and maybe show you how simple the game actually is to play, even though it looks very complicated. The comprehensive rules video that Greater Than Games did is like 22 minutes, but it tells you everything that you need to know, and it's really well done. But basically what you're going to do to set up the game is you're going to set up all these components here. You're going to put out all these little tokens here. Now you're going to put one less token by the player count. So if I have 5 players, I'm going to put 4 of each of these out. If I have 4 players, I put 3 of each of those out. The only exception is the lab key token, and that one you're only going to put 2 out. Now your player aid per player is actually the player board. It's going to show you how many of each of the different components are in this bag. It's going to show you what all these different tokens do, and when you claim a token, you're going to put them on your board. You only have one of each at any one time, but they tell you what those components will do. So you could tell when you're setting up the game and explaining it, you can say, well, you can get these different tokens throughout the game. You could just read your board to see what they do, and it's very clear. To set up, you're also going to put out 3 of these little tokens blocking some spaces of where your components can go. You're going to get 2 or 3 claim tokens. 2 are going to go here in your reserve, and 1's going to go there to be active. You're going to get a wild resource, which you could use throughout the game to be any resource you want. If you don't use this, by the end of the game, you're going to get 2 points. This game is whoever has the most points wins. You'll also have this fire extinguisher. If it's completed and you didn't use it and you still have it at the end of the game, it's worth 4 points. Any components that are on this fire extinguisher are worth 1 point each. Any components that you have on acclaimed chemical compounds out here are going to be worth 1 point each, and every 2 components you have on here are worth 1 point. The game will end when someone gets to 50 points, and you'll do one last round, and the person with the highest score at the end of the game wins. The game can also immediately end if you run out of the component deck here to place cards out. It just immediately ends. Alright, so now how you do the rest of the setup. Well, you're going to have these lab fire things. You have 5 of them. So you're going to separate the deck into 6 piles after you remove the starting compounds. Now these will have a yellow border on them, so you know what they are. Then I'm going to put a lab fire on the top of each of these, except for 1. And then I'm going to stack these on top of each other. And then this one here that I didn't put any in is going to go on the top. Now, this is sort of like pandemic style or other type of game styles here. But you can also do a variant where you shuffle these into each of those piles. So I like that variant, so you don't exactly know when a lab fire is going to hit, but you're actually also, we're supposed to put out, which I didn't do that phase, you're supposed to put out the remaining components to make a 4x4 grid before you did that. So just keep that in mind. It's not the end of the world if you didn't. Just mean a lab fire is going to come up a little bit quicker, but that's fine. All right, so then you're going to set this deck aside. Remember, when that deck runs out, if it does before someone gets 50, the game immediately ends. So what you're going to do is the game goes through rounds, and at the start of the round, the first round, every player is going to draw for, cheated there, 4 components out, and they'll place them in their place before anything starts. You'll never do this any other time in the game. This is just at the first start of the game. And the player with the rarest resources up here will get the lab key and go first. If there's a tie, the youngest player will get the lab key. So each round goes into 4 different turn phases. You're going to have discovery, you're going to have study, you're going to have research, and you're going to have lab phase. Now, these are all corresponding to here. Now, on the first turn, you're going to skip the discovery phase, but when in the discovery phase, you're going to take the number that you have here, and this is how many components you're going to draw from the bag. When you're drawing components, you can place them on here, and you can only have as many as you have open slots. If you have too many, you'll have to return some to the bag, choose what you want. But again, on the first turn of the game, first round of the game, you don't do this. Also during this phase, people could trade whatever. So you can trade your components, you can trade your wild resources, you can trade favors, you can do all that stuff. The only things you can't trade are points on the board, and you can't trade your levels. So you could do that, and that's actually a good portion of the game, trying to trade resources to be able to complete these, which we'll go over in a second. The next part is your study phase, and you're going to see this is going to be the amount of claim tokens that you can not only have on the board itself, but however many you can put down on this portion of the round. So right here is 1, so I can go out and I can say, well, I have these colors right here. I have a carbon, I have red oxygen, and oh man, I am very bad at chemistry. And I don't remember what alright, anyway, it doesn't matter. So you don't have to know chemistry to play this game, obviously. So I'm going to look at the colors here. I'm going to see which ones I could potentially complete or complete. The other things I'm going to take a look at too is on these ones, they have little flame tokens. That's how flammable it is before it explodes. We'll go over that in a second. Also in the bottom right hand corner, some of them have little symbols here. These are the tokens I gained for completing it. Up here is going to be what gets improved on my research track for completing it. And here's the points. There's a couple other cool icons in here, like this one has the green plus. That's going to be a grant. If you get this one, it should be fairly easy to complete, get you good points, raise a good thing, but you're gonna have to pick an opponent and raise one of theirs. If you can't raise any of theirs, then you're going to have to split the points. The other one's gonna be a volatile chemical reaction, which I didn't see those come out. That's going to have like a little red symbol. So I'm going to get one here. Yeah, like this. If these get completed, they actually cause a lab fire, but they don't count as a lab fire. And we'll go over what those are, what happens there. But in turn orders, we'll all claim which ones we want. So let's go ahead and say, I want to go ahead and claim, well, I'm not going to actively try to crazy about it. I'm going to go ahead and claim this one. Okay. And let's say before I knew I was going to do that, I was going to go ahead and someone wanted this. So they were very generous and they gave me a oxygen. And I traded, or let's say I traded away enough that I could complete this, which you don't necessarily have to complete, but we're going to do that so you can see. All right. So then the next phase is going to be the research phase. And in the research phase, what you're going to do, you're going to be placing out your compounds. So in turn order, you can go ahead and put out which ones you want. So I can go ahead and I can finish these. Now I can put these on anything I want, even another person's claimed token. Now a couple things I didn't mention real quick. There is a 2-player variant where you play against a bot, and there's also a cooperative version where you actually have to try to, as teams, complete these different things. But I'm not going to over it. This is just the basic game. Once everyone's done that, you can go to the fourth phase, which is the lab phase. Here, you can go ahead and get your points for your completed compounds. So I can get points for this. This will give me 6 points on the periodic table. Now, this is like the coolest points track in the world. This is the periodic table, and so I get 6 points. So I put myself up there, and then I'd have to raise someone else's level. Now, while we're doing this and we're actually claiming these one at a time, if someone got a volatile reaction, they would put a flame token on all the flammable compounds. Once you claim it, your pieces go back into the bag, and once everyone has claimed what they're going to claim or stuff's out here, you're going to put new ones out. Now, you can have a volatile reaction and have a lab fire during a turn, so it can be very dangerous. But anytime you have a lab fire, you're just going to place one of these flame tokens on every flammable compound that's in here. Now, when this happens, a couple different things. If these are just the single ones, they explode. If there's nothing on them, they're fine. If there is something on them, the person who has a claim token on it can determine where these compounds go, but they will go diagonally or across, basically, from the compound that exploded. They have to be placed on the adjacent compounds if they can be. If they can't, they go back in the bag. That's basically a lab fire. If you flip another lab fire over when you're cleaning these or putting these out, you're only going to do one of them. You're actually going to set them aside until you fill the grid. So only one lab fire per round, but you can have multiple volatile reactions. Final thing I didn't explain is people can have this fire extinguisher. If they, during the research phase, if they fill this up, they can return those components to the bag, flip this over, and now they have a fire extinguisher. They can use this fire extinguisher to prevent the placing of one fire token on any of these. Now, you'll also notice that some of them with only one for the volatile are worth a ton of points. That's because these are super dangerous and very hard to complete because there's a lot of stuff on them. So you have to keep that in mind. Also, don't forget when you're completing these too, that whatever type it is, which shows right here, you're going to raise that level on your board, which makes those that much better. So this is just a general overview of the game, but that's pretty much it. You're going to go ahead claiming these compounds, trying to get as many done as possible, get to that 50 points, end the game. You got one final round. Person with the highest points win. And again, remember, if this deck runs out, the game ends immediately. So that's it for how to play Compounded. Let's go ahead back up to the table here and I'll give you my final thoughts. So I love Compounded. A couple different things I want to say about Compounded first is that it's not as complicated as people might think. So when you watch the really good comprehensive rules guide that Greater Than Games put out for Compounded, it's 22 minutes, so it's a long video. But in a nutshell, to teach the game and to have other players play it, it's not that complicated. To be the one teaching it, you do need to know all those rules. You need to go over them. There's a couple things you can offload in it. Like you can offload the different tokens in there. You can let the players discover them on their own because they're on the player sheet, which is a really good player guide also. And each of the different tokens is explained very well on that. So you can say, okay, well, you can get these tokens by having them on the bottom right-hand corner. If you complete the 8 compounds, you get that token. You can look at your player aid to see what those tokens do, and when they can be activated. You can only have one of each token on there, and so on. So you can go through that pretty quickly. So I wanted to first say that this game is amazing, and it's not that complicated. You can learn this pretty easily. So I think it has a little bit of a thing of being complicated. It's not. Also, component-wise, it is amazing. The components are always great with greater than games, and this is no exception. I love the first player token. I like the little wood pieces for that. I love the player boards. I love the periodic table as a score chart. That's amazing. Really, really good in that aspect. Fun-wise, this game is a lot of fun. There's a lot of strategy to this game. This is one of those games that you will want to play through once so you get the hang of it, get used to the lab fires and the interactions with the different tokens and the chain reactions, so that you get used to trying to claim these, what it means to not be able to finish one, what it means to maybe finish unclaimed ones. Like you can, if you finish a unclaimed one, you also get those, but with the risk that you go through with the different compounds, some of them only have the one flame token. One thing I didn't mention is you can actually turn a non-flammable compound into a flammable compound, and then the non-flammable ones have two flame, can take up to 2 flame tokens before they blow up. I played this with my daughters and I love it. There's a lot of cool things you can do. You can work together in a sort of way. The trading mechanism is really cool. The setting it up so you blow up another opponent's compound before they complete it is a lot of fun. There's just so much greatness to this game, and with a world of like a lot of the games following the same theme, this is wonderful to have a unique theme to a game. Also, educational game, and most educational games aren't that great, but this game is great. So I highly recommend Compounded. It is a wonderful game. Thank you for watching.